Yes, it's the Finnish football show. As ever, the theme tune restarts itself, and I'm never quite quick enough to get it started. I'm not going to apologise. You're used to this by now. This is Finnish Football Show 22. I'm Mark Wiltshire from Explore Finland Radio Show. Thanks for joining me. As ever, I'm joined today by Mark from FC Suomi. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
And Keke, who's a regular contributor to the Stand fanzine. Hi, Keke.
Moi.
He's making his return. He did such a good job last time, we decided to keep him. You're a full-time member of the team now, Keke, as long as you can put up with us two and this shambolic show that we run.
Very professional.
So far, so good. It's only been a minute. And it's actually only been 6 weeks since the last show. Since then, we've seen the start of the Veikkausliiga season 2019. So in this episode, we'll go back, summarise the first 6 or so rounds of games, talk about what we've noticed so far. I'm sure we'll also be talking about Keke exploits, the English Championship, and also how some of the Finnish players are getting on overseas. And we'll look at both the light and the shade of that situation. And I guess, I don't know if he deserves a second shout out, but Barbarian suggested we take a look at a couple of these, and we decided to expand it. So there you go, Barbarian. There's your second shout out. Let's see if he comes back again next time. We've also got the new regular features, Ja Silla Sipuli and Following, as well as the ever-present news feature to kick things off. So, as ever, this show is live on YouTube. Yes, I can see myself going out, slightly delayed. So, and just checking, I think you can make comments. Last time you couldn't make comments, but I think you can make comments this time. I also tried a little something new and created a Facebook event for the show for this recording. So if you have a look on there and post some comments, we can see those. Maybe Keith and Mark can also keep an eye there. For me, it's a bit like flying an aircraft in here. I've got so many screens and tabs open. So if you guys can keep an eye on there as well. Podcast listeners can use social media to get in touch, like you have done before with your feedback. Our handles are @FC Suomi, @Explore Finland, and @Keke Mülleri. And find that Facebook event I mentioned. It's within the Finnish Football Show Facebook group. So find the group, ask to join, and we'll let you in. Been a bit more active in there recently, so I've created a YouTube playlist for Veikkausliiga highlights. So I'm sort of adding highlights to that when I can find them, and sort of sharing that from time to time in the group. And I'm also kind of posting pictures of the league tables and the top scorer charts and things like that. So trying to make it a little bit more interactive. So if those of you that are in there see these things, interact with them, for goodness sake. That's what it's there for. After today, we'll try and get the podcast out in a few days. I've been quite good recently at getting it out quite quickly. So hopefully within a day or two. But now let's kick off the first half of the show. And I've had a bit of input into the agenda and the script for today. So here we go. Before we kick off the first, I can't say it. Before we kick off the first half of the show, I promise to limit my B words to Brøndby, Bundesliga, Backa, Bayer Leverkusen, Bernhard Veto, or Boris Rottenberg Jr., without mentioning a certain divisive political situation that also starts with B. The amount of I can see you waving your hands in the air, Mr. H. It only slipped out once. I get asked about this every few days being in Finland, but let's leave that B word behind. And let's start with some recent news. We've planned this, but as ever, Mark will probably bring up something that broke just a few minutes ago. But why don't we start maybe with Keke and tell us a little bit about this HFK fan protest?
Yeah, well, those of you who are members of our Facebook group, and if you listen to this and you're not, then why not? So get involved. But you may have seen a photo that was of an empty Telia Arena posted last week by James Firth. James was asking where all the HFK fans were when the photo was taken, and it soon became apparent that Stadin Kingit, their fan group, had staged a boycott of the first part of the game. Now, this was in protest against plans for the majority shareholding of Helsinki IFK football department to be sold to a foreign consortium. The HIFK fans showed off a banner reading in Finnish, "No to sneaky businessmen. This is our IFK," which I quite like the look of. So yeah, I don't know if Mark, you know a little bit more about these alleged sneaky businessmen. I know they are involved in a Danish club as well, are they not?
Yeah, they are. I mean, they start off with a humble beginnings of being a traditional Chinese/Moldovan investment company, so you can trust them. They invested in Vælge in Denmark. Vælge it's a club that it's like a 120-year history. So it started in the 1800s. It won tons of trophies back in the 50s and the 60s, but then it had a bunch of financial troubles and sort of fell out of favor and sort of went into the wilderness for a couple of decades. Does that sound familiar, HIFK fans? They got bought out by these Chinese Moldovans. I think it was 4 years ago, and they pumped a bunch of money in. They got promoted from the Danish first division into the Superliga, but now they're bang bottom of the Superliga. They're going into the relegation playoffs, and they're odds-on favorites to get relegated. They're currently racking up something like a €500,000 debt. And they've got 2 or 3 players that have been brought in from China that have never played a game. 2 or 3 players that have been brought in from sort of Russia and other far-flung corners of the earth that have never played. So they've got a sort of 29, 30-man squad. 5 to 10 players haven't played, and they're in debt, and they're going down. So it's the HIFK fans have got every right and every reason to be properly worried about those guys.
So just at the moment, just to clarify, is the football department of HIFK still intrinsically linked to the hockey department, or are they separate entities? Do we know?
No, I'm pretty sure it was separated out after they got into the Veikkausliiga the first time back in the day. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I don't think they share the same like infrastructure and cost and the rest of it. If there's
the ownership, but the ownership is Finnish at the moment. That's true, isn't it?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it'd be a shame to lose a Finnish football club to. I know there's a lot of these foreign investors trying to make money in lots of football clubs, like we've seen in England and elsewhere. But it'd be a shame that an old traditional club like HIFK gets sold off to people who may come in with all bright ideas and not necessarily have the best interests at heart. All allegedly, of course. We don't want to get in trouble, but here you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem that you can see is that depending on how the ownership model works, it defines roughly where the debts go if you start raking them up. And the big problem for someone like HIFK is that the kind of debts that Vælge are raking up is not the kind of debts you can just sort of do a hunker and walk away from. It's not like a couple like players that weren't paid or a couple of others. This would be the kind of thing that would keep him like, there'd be some serious consequences.
Mm.
So it's and I mean, Finland's had its fair share of like scandal and match fixing and weird betting patterns and the rest of it. So I think it's it's way too risky to get involved with.
This talk of sorry, Keith, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say. So basically, we at the Finnish Football Show are right behind the Stadin Kinget and back their protest 100%, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. In this case, we're right behind you, boys. Sometimes we're at the opposite end, shouting towards you.
Yeah.
But that's just being football supporters. And this kind of protest, in a way, leads on to my news story, which is another kind of protest, almost in the opposite direction. This was an Ukkonen game between FF Jaro and Tamisaari EIF, where there was some racist insult was shouted by one person in the crowd. Now, in a season where in many different countries we've seen all different kinds of ugly incidents of racist behaviour from the fans, and players are starting to sort of stand up to it. In this case, it was the referee that stood up to it. Referee, and I think he deserves a shout out as well. Referee Mohammed Al Emara, who stopped the game for 5 minutes when he heard this insult being shouted out, and has been roundly applauded for it, for following I guess, UEFA directives on dealing with this kind of thing, and just saying that this has got to stop. And he's got history. He did it last year as well. So this is one referee who's not going to just take it. I've no idea where his roots are, but clearly he has some heritage going back to another country, and so maybe he feels it more than others, and is standing up for it. And I think that in its own way, that's a protest, and that's also one that needs to be applauded. And I'll share a link to the story. Of course, it's in Finnish, but with the marvels of Google Translate, it's worth a read, because FF Jaro completely condemned the action of their supporter and completely supported the referee. And there should be more. There should be more of it. I actually, that said, having read a couple of stories, there's about 20 incidences a year within Finland of some kind of racial insult, and that's 20 too many, clearly, but it's not endemic. I've maybe in the sort of 8 or 9 years I've been watching football in Finland, I've heard things shouted maybe 3 times, and generally these people are told to shut up by the other fans. But it's a good thing, and it's a high profile thing. And someone mentioned, actually Julian, friend of the show, Julian, mentioned it to me, and I thought I'd bring it to the wider population.
Yeah, hats off to the ref. I mean, there's been a couple of, like, on the biggest sort of world stage. There was Patrick Vieira, the coach, and it was the lad Keane from Juventus, and a couple of others that have sort of, as players or coaches, have had to sort of throw the towel in and take the players off and say that they're not going to participate anymore until like somebody sorts it out. And that's always a tricky thing, because it always puts the players and the coaches in a really weird position, right? Because it's like, well, why are you stopping the game? And it's, whatever. So the fact that the ref stepped up and took control of the situation, I think, is just massively laudable, and hats off to the fella.
It's been happening quite a bit in Italy recently, hasn't it? It seems to be a massive problem there at the moment, and apparently the directive there is on the third incident, or the third time of the referee hearing anything like that, he stops the game. Why it takes them three chances, I don't know, but yeah, obviously these referees are reluctant to do that. So yeah, hats off to the guy who's taken a stand and halted the game, so that they know that it's not acceptable.
Mark, do you have any breaking news for us?
Of course he does.
Of course I do. A little bit of breaking news. So I'm going to throw you a curveball of a name, Crawford Ray. Right. So Saturday, there was a news story that came out Saturday that had me and a couple of others sort of scratching their heads. Jonathan Johansson, former Finnish forward and general goal getter and handsome guy, he quit Greenock Morton about half an hour, I think, before kickoff on their final game of the season this Saturday, and nobody had any goddamn idea why. There's been an interview now, I think, in the Herald or in one of the Scottish presses today with Crawford Ray, who's the chairman of the of Greenock Morton. And basically, what had transpired is there's a player called Telfer, who was one of the sort of high earners in Greenock Morton, and the chairman had basically come down and said, like, we're losing too much money, don't play Telfer. And they had a bit of an argy-bargy with Jonathan Johansson and his assistant manager. And eventually, after that sort of argy-bargy calmed down, the chairman had basically agreed to field Telfer. But the management team basically said at the time that, well, first of all, it's the last game of the season. I think they were basically odds on. Greenock Morton ended up finishing sixth, which is it's not a bad end position, particularly given that it's Dinty's first managerial post, and Greenock Morton aren't exactly like a stellar team. But they decided just before kickoff that that was it. The chairman had come down and started to interfere and walk. Although we didn't find this out on Saturday. So Saturday everything was like sort of bedlam and a bit crazy, because Morton did beat Dundee. Queen of the South went to the playoffs. Was it Wraith Rovers who went down? I can't remember now. I don't know. Some other small Scottish team got relegated that wasn't Greenock Morton. But it was a very strange and a very odd way, and it's a real shame, because young manager, first job. By all accounts, finishing sixth with Green at Morton in the first division in Scotland is a decent endeavour. He's done his job. He's kept them up, or he's kept them sort of competitive. It's just a shame, just a big shame.
It was. I think the story was that this guy, he would have triggered a clause in his contract had he played to get either a pay rise or an extra contract for next year, which is why the chairman had said, please don't play him. And obviously, once the chairman's interfering with any managerial team selection, it makes the manager's position untenable, really. But the other aside to this was, I'm not sure if Johansson and his assistant were going to stay at Greenock next season either. Whether they had a contract in place for next season, maybe that was financial also. But
yeah, so I think they did. I think you signed off for I think it was 1-1, but basically the noises out of this Crawford fella, the chairman, was that we're hemorrhaging money and we need to cut costs and cut the bill. I mean, I have no idea what kind of contract he's on, but he's a first-time manager in the Scottish, Scottish lower leagues, so he can't be raking in that much.
You're right, Mark. The achievement it speaks for itself, really. I mean, he's come in there, he's done his job, and that's the sort of thanks he gets. But hopefully, I mean, before Gerard tipped up at Rangers, he was assisting Graham Murty over there. So in their interim period between managers. So hopefully, he knows the Scottish leagues. Hopefully, he'll pick up another job up there.
Yeah, he's got a decent reputation in Scotland, and he's like I said, he's whatever. One season under his belt, he's done all right. So I think he'll be roughly all right. But it's still a shame. I don't like to see it. Chairman interfering with the game.
Indeed.
Keke, we can move maybe on from the news towards looking into Finnish players overseas, but I think maybe you can start by telling a little bit about the standout Finnish player overseas, surely, for this past season.
I'm not sure I can think of one, really. But
do you want a clue? You've been sending plenty of pictures of him around on social media for the last few weeks.
Got a bit of a man crush on Teemu at the moment, especially with his new Mohican haircut.
Yeah.
Was passed on to him by one of his teammates, which suits him. But yeah, you can't move for Teemu Pukki, can you? Champion, English Football League champion, Golden Boot winner. He's doing it all, and so I've got, actually, this is stolen again from our mate Barbarian, but he's retweeted some stats here. Pukki's played nearly 4,000 minutes, 43 starts, 75% accurate passes, 56% shots on target. He's made 67% successful tackles, so he's doing it all. Teemu, I think he ended up with, what was it, 29 goals. And a bucket load of assists, 9 assists, I think the stat is. So
scorer in the championship for the team that were champions.
Yeah, so I mean, you can't say fairer than that, can you? He's well deserved. I mean, I don't think, even with the interviews I've seen with himself, I don't think he was expecting it to go this well. Not sure. I mean, obviously the Norwich fans would have hoped for promotion, but I'm not sure they thought that goal machine Teemu Pukki was going to fire him to the Premier League. But that's what's transpired, and let's hope that he can do the business in the top division.
And they've taken to him as well, the fans. They've really they really sort of pally with him. I think I've seen a bunch of interviews where they compare him with Chris Sutton and Jeremy Goss and a bunch of other Norwich legends from down the years. So he's in, they think that he's up there in the sort of A grade of Norwich players and Norwich folklore. So yeah, just.
And it will be great to see him do it next year, and just get that chance, because we don't need to revisit your rant from the previous show, Mark, but you're right. He's viewed a certain way up in Scotland for a period much earlier in his career. He's gone on to other teams, other countries, each time kind of a step up, and now he's at Norwich and taking that step up with them. And they haven't spent loads of money in their squad. They haven't brought in loads of star players. I'm sure they'll bring in a few players through the team next year, but hopefully they won't do what Fulham did, which is lose a load of players, buy big, and balls it up, basically. So hopefully they'll kind of grow and develop all together as a team with him in it.
Yeah, I mean, last season Brøndby won the cup in Denmark and finished second in the league. This season they've struggled. I think they finished third. They're finishing third or fourth at the moment. They're not like up there. So without Teemu Pukki, Brøndby aren't doing particularly well. As for Norwich, it's the champion. The difference between the Championship and the Premier League is they're going to have to buy somebody who can make a little bit better decisions in the final third, because they do waste a lot of like the decision making from the players around Pukki is not always brilliant. I mean, that being said, they've won the league with I would say relatively comfortably. I know Leeds kind of imploded and Sheffield United lost, I think, as well on the last day, but yeah, Norwich have been, I mean, favourites and pretty much expected to win that league for about a month now. So yeah, I think just we're going to have a Finnish player back in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's decent. There was an online poll as well that Barbarian put out saying how many goals do we think that Teemu's going to get in the Premier League, and I think after he got about 200 votes, and predicted goals total is 8 to 13. So, and I mean, I think that'd be a pretty decent haul for him, to be honest. First season in the Premier League for a newly promoted side. If he can register 13 goals, then he will have done his bit, I think.
Yeah, double figures would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah, double figures puts him basically in, would make him tradable to any Premier League team. I think if he gets somewhere, like if he gets 8, I mean, 8's a decent, like the 8's sort of Shane Long numbers. You know what I mean? That's not like, it's not. Shane Long's been a Premier League player for God knows how long, too long probably. But 8 goals.
He's got some dirt on someone.
Yeah, but 8 goals a season is decent enough. If he hits double figures, I mean, who would Solomon Rondon at Newcastle? He's done double figures this year. You know, you're in sort of. There's a lot of decent company at that sort of level.
So, what about some of the other Finnish players overseas? Let's start with some of the positives. His name's at the top of the list again, but let's skip over Teemu Pukki. He's had almost as much exposure on this show as Barbarian has. So let's look at let's look at someone else. I think this was me putting this down here, which was firstly like Glenn Kamara up at Rangers, who, you know, from Arsenal moving up to Dundee and then into the Rangers team. I haven't seen much of him playing for Rangers, but I have seen him look very kind of comfortable playing for the Finnish national team.
I watch quite a lot of Scottish football, and he just looks decent in that league. He's bossing the Rangers midfield. He's settled into that side. The last game he was a bit quiet, but previous to that, he's 6 or 7, however many games he's played, he's been stand up, and all the Rangers fans are saying it's the best 50 grand they've spent in years. You know, I mean, it's
money well spent.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they're expecting him to hang around there for a good few years and really stamp his authority on their midfield and on that division. You know, if they're gonna further close the gap against Celtic, then they're expecting big things from Glenn Kamara, and obviously playing week in, week out for a team challenging at the top of a league, whether you compare that league to the English Premier League or the English Championship. It's still a decent standard when you're at the top of the Scottish Premier League, and it only do good things for him and good things for the national side, I think.
And he'll stay in the manager's good books by not getting sent off, because most of the rest of the Rangers team seems to be in a race to get a red card each game.
Yeah, former Hoyi core striker Alfredo Morelos, not adverse to a red card every now and again.
No, that's true.
Went to his head a bit. Just went to, a bit of rush of blood. But at Dundee, he got a lot stronger. He's moved over to Rangers. He stepped up, I think, seamlessly. So like, there's been like, he's just adapted really well. So he's going to be involved in more fights and more battles in the middle of the pitch. If he gets, finishes the season, gets 30 odd games next season, he'll be, maybe one of the next in line to end up in the Premier League or one of the bigger leagues. I know Rangers want to hold on to him, but if he keeps developing the way that he's been developing, because he's always had that sort of technical ability with the ball. Like, he's always been able to protect the ball and find a pass, and now he's getting physically stronger so he can shield and start throwing his weight around. I think he'll be phenomenal.
And he's not going to win a championship this year. Rangers are going to come slightly short to Celtic, but they're getting closer year on year after the years in the doldrums for Rangers. But there are a few Finns in various leagues around Europe that are looking like they're going to win a title. You mentioned, first of all, Mark, Jere Urunen, Hulkejad player and plying his trade in Belgium.
Yeah, and he's had a weird thing. He's had a weird run of form for the Hulkejad because he's picked up a couple of injuries just after being selected for Finland. So he hasn't played for a couple of games in the national team. That being said, in Belgium, he's been in Belgium for, I'm going to say, 4 years now. And this year they're storming at the top of the league. I think they've got 3 rounds left, and it looks like they're going to lift the pot. Every year he's been there, it's another. I've always liked Jere Urunen. When he was at Helsingborg in Sweden, he just kept getting the. Like, I was kind of, you do a double take with him because I think he's only like 26, something like that. He played something like 200 games before he was 20, and I mean, there's not much like other than like getting games under your belt, competitive games under your belt, than to build a player. And he's done it like gradually stepping up league to league to league. And this win, if he wins the title, it'll either put him in contention for a European place, or it'll put him on the radar for scouts and clubs in the bigger leagues outside of Belgium, because perfect age, good performance, good engine, good pace, can hit a shot, can hit a cross. His defensive game's getting better. A winner's medal around his neck is just gonna be the thing that's gonna tick the box for most scouts.
And he's playing for Genk in the Belgian first division.
Yeah. Yep. Well, he's up at Genk.
And then there's Jesse Joronen in Denmark. He had some years at Fulham without really managing to make the breakthrough. Working for him in Denmark.
Loan stints. He had loan stints in Accrington Stanley, if I remember. Who are they?
Did he not score a goal for Stevenage as well?
He did from his. It was a launched pinged goal kick or something like that, and it bounced. Yeah, it was 2015. Yeah, but he left Fulham. They were offering him a contract to stay on as backup again, and he sacked it off and went to Denmark. Played well, got his big move to Copenhagen, to FC Copenhagen, and they're fighting off Midtjylland now, but they're also top of the league, and I think 2 rounds left, and it looks like they're nailed on for the Danish championship. I think he got rested. I think he got rested in the last game because I think I might need to check the stats, but I'm pretty sure they've already mathematically won it.
Yeah, it's the gap's massive, so it's looking like it's nailed on for them.
Yeah, but he's always been a good keeper, and he's another one who kind of at the right time. He didn't like Nicky Mampaz. Sort of, he lost 2 or 3 years when he moved to Brighton. It just didn't play in his prime. And I think Joronen was looking at that sort of like being a bench warmer for a long period of time, and just decided, okay, I've got to go get games. He's looking great. I'm not sure he's in a place where he could compete with Luka, because Hradecki's just phenomenal, but it's always great to have another pair of gloves that's ready and winning medals.
Yeah, you've also. What age is he now, Mark?
Joronen.
Yeah,
20. I'm going to say 24. How old am I? What year is this?
So, the goalkeepers have got a long career. There's still time for him.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. But he's been it. I mean, I'd say he's knocking around 24. If he's not 24, between 24, 25, that sort of age. So he's got a long old stint ahead of him.
And what about Kasper Hammerleinen? I learned his name from talking to you over the years, and you kind of raving about him, and he made a controversial move between clubs in Poland, and he was banging in the goals, and yet whenever I've seen him play for the national team, it hasn't really seemed to happen. Now, maybe he's not had the service over the last couple of years. He hasn't really been starting for the national team in the last year or so, but he's working at club level.
Yeah, well, I mean, so he's not. When he was playing when he won the league at Poznan, and his first 2 years at Legia Warsaw, he was playing week in, week out. Since then, the last couple of years, he's been sort of sliding down the pecking order, and now he's predominantly a bench warmer who they bring on if they're in lots of trouble or if they need to keep the ball in the corner for the last 10 sort of 15 minutes. I like him just because if you need a goal, he finds the right position, and he's not too fancy, he's not too flary. He's just the kind of guy who pops up and gets you a goal if you need one, and that's what I like about him. And I think he's only scored 2 or 3 this season, but he picked up a goal against, oh god, Jagiellonica Bludgelik last weekend to put Legia I think 4 or 5 points clear for the first time, because they've struggled actually this year to find sort of a bit of form. They picked up form towards the end of the campaign, and it looks like they're going to win. If they win, I'm pretty sure it's his 6th consecutive title in Poland, which is just like mind blowing.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, he's 32, 33, so he won't be there next season. He'll be moving on, probably back north. I would imagine. But yeah, I think he's one of those players that I've got a soft spot for him, and I think not many other people. I don't think he's anybody else's favorite player, but I like him because he's always good for a goal. His movement's always quite nice. He always wants the ball. I really like a player that always goes looking for the ball.
Maybe with the time is chasing on, so maybe we'll move on to some of those players that are not having such a good time of it overseas at the moment, before bringing back an old favourite, Mark, and we'll have a little discussion about him after this. But first of all, what's going on with for Robin Lod?
Yeah, so Robin Lud's struggling to get a game. He's making 10 minutes here and there every other week at Sporting Gijon. Sporting Gijon, 4 rounds left in Spain. Actually, their game got cancelled the weekend, so it might be 5 rounds left in Spain. They are 6 points off the playoff places in Segunda, so they can still make a kind of a late run for promotion, but they're not in great form. Lud was signed by Ruben Baraja, and he was kind of brought in to play in the hole behind this guy Jurdic, who's a Serbian international forward. And they started the season pretty well in this sort of 4-4-1-1. So they had a pretty sort of flat formation, and Lud was in the hole with not that much responsibility. He was connecting the play, he was arriving late in the box, and he was getting goals, and everything was going kind of all right. In October, Baraja got sacked, and he was replaced by Jose Alberto Lopez. And basically, since the new boy came in, they changed the system a little bit. They tried to play Robin in the middle of the pitch. They tried to play him as like a distinct striker or a forward that was playing off like high up, and they've tried to play him out on the wing, and he's not really sort of fitted into the formation or to the tactics. So he's not really been able to hold down a place since about November, which is just it's one of those things, it just happens. It happens every now and again. The guy signs for a new club. There's lots of excitement, lots of anticipation. They were one of the favourites to be promoted. 2 months in, the manager changes, fall down the pecking order, and then I've been pinging a couple of guys on Twitter who follow the Spanish league, and they like him. They like him as a player. They think he's nippy. They think he doesn't score enough, which is probably a criticism you could levy at him over the years. But it's a big shame.
And also Puru Soiri. I mean, I really enjoy watching him play for Hukayat.
Same deal.
And he looks lively, and he looks tricky, and he looks like he might make something happen. But again, similar situation for him at the moment.
Yeah, same deal. Puru is a little bit more, I think, understandable given the change. So Ernst Baumeister was the guy who brought him in at Mirowaka. They were playing this 4-2-3-1, so he played basically wide, like inside forward, flanking into the box. Scored 2 goals in 10 games. Hit the ground running. Everybody was happy, although the club couldn't pick up much form. So Baumeister got the sack again in roughly October 2018. They brought in this German guy, Rainier Geyer. Geyer changed the formation to like a 3-4-3, which left Puru Soiri with either being the wide man on a 4 with basically the wing back doing the whole flank, or being like an inside forward in a front 3. And he doesn't really fit into that. As good as he is, I don't think he's not a good fit for that kind of system. So
is he better out? You think better out wide in a 4?
He's better when he's got a fullback behind him. That's for sure. And I think when he's best at turning up late with pace into the box, right? Like getting around the back on the blind side or getting between defenders. So if he starts up in the forward position, his movement's kind of stunted, right? Because he's really quick and he really wants to kind of make a move. But if he's already in the box, when the play comes forward, or if he's already high up, it means that he's got a marker usually quite close to him, so he's not ghosting off or dropping or making space. He's sort of usually stuck with someone.
And then we have Perpa Hettemaier. It's the last of the ones we'll focus on having a tough time. He's been at Kievo for ever.
Forever, yeah.
But this year it's not going their way.
Yeah, bottom of the league. I think they were relegated 3 weeks ago. Down and out. That's a real shame. It's a real shame because I loved Kievo were they had a massive rivalry with Hellas Verona. They had a huge sort of fight. Perpa scored twice. He's really good in the midfield. He's his usual self, picking the ball up, keeping it, distributing it, getting himself stuck in, trying to win tackles and win free kicks as well. But they haven't been able to score a lot of goals and they've been conceding too many, which is, I guess, the old cliche.
Were they docked points at the beginning of the season as well? Were they not?
Yeah, they were.
So it was an uphill struggle from the start for them.
It was, but they've even with that they never stuck together a run that made you think they could overcome the deficit that they had. So they've never really looked like they could compete, and it's just such a big. I don't know. I just I love Perpa. He's one of those players that I really enjoy watching him. But it's hard.
Yeah, it's a shame. The Kievo fans really looked after us when we were in Verona for the friendly. There's a bit of a link there, obviously, with Perpa, and they were really welcoming. So it's a shame to see the Flying Donkeys come back to earth.
It's such a good. The Flying Donkeys are such a good story. It's such a good for the uninitiated, Hellas Verona said, I think the fans, I think it was a chairman or a manager said, donkeys will fly before Kievo finish above us in the league. And so that happened, I think, 2013, 14, something like that. And they took the nickname from then, from that point forward. They said, we're the Flying Donkeys now. It's just, it's just so much, so much respect for that team and so much love for it.
And so onto your discussion, and we're almost at half time, but you wanted to say something about Roman Eremenko. Maybe you can give, for the uninitiated, a little bit of background there, and then what he's been up to recently.
Well, a while ago, he was partying very hard and got caught after a Champions League game for CSKA Moscow with cocaine in his system, and he was out for 18 months. He came back recently, didn't make it in
Spartak.
Spartak, thank you very much, and then got himself a transfer out to Rostov. He's turned up at Rostov and he's banged in, I think, he got 3 goals, 8 games. He's been man of the match 5-6 times since he's playing there. He's got assists. He's, bossing it. He looks, if you watch I've seen the highlights. I've watched one of his games live. He looks fresh. He looks like he just sort of stepped out of a jacuzzi or something.
He looks like he had a year and a half holiday.
Yeah, he just genuinely looks like he's just took good care of himself and relaxed and not really added any miles to the clock. And he's looking, as a player, kind of classy, like really, really, really good. And now, obviously, now that he's back playing and he's fit and match fit, it looks like there's a lot of talk about him coming back into the national team, into the national fold.
And how would him being in the team change the dynamic of what's been going on in the national team in the last year? Like winning games and stuff.
Well, that's the big debate. So at least when he left, before he left, which was actually back in the dark ages. So this was before, I think, Canova had put together a run of teams. Actually, if I remember rightly, he didn't get. I think he got dropped by Canova when Canova came in first as caretaker manager and went out and won in. Where did he? He went and won in Greece, and I think he won in Hungary as well. So, was it Hungary or Romania? Anyway, when Canova came in for the first time, he basically didn't pick. He put Pohjan Palo and Pukki up front and left and did the 4-4-2 and left Roma basically out. And from then on, that's a team that's worked hard for each other. It's worked hard for themselves. that's started to win games and looks tough. So it depends what kind of Roma walks back in the door, because when he left, he was the big shot, like he was the guy. And yeah, I'm not. I mean,
you're looking a little bit nostalgic there. Let's see. Let's keep an eye on it. Maybe come back to this over the next few shows and see how he's doing. And obviously after the next show, probably the next show will probably be after the next national team game. So we'll have something to talk about on both counts there. But that kind of brings us up to half time and our new halftime feature of Yasilla Sipuli. Maybe one more time, Mark, just explain what this phrase in itself means and then explain what this week's Finnish football phrase is.
So Yasilla Sipuli is, and that's an onion. Which is, if for anybody who's tried to learn Finnish or who's spent any time either with a Finn as their partner or in Finland trying to figure out what people are talking about, and you get stuck with how the language is built and how nothing seems to have any rules or make any sense, what the Finns will say to you is, "Yep, Sila Sipuli," and it's their version of yes, kind of the way it is. And this month, I don't know, this show.
Let's not put weeks and months to it, for goodness sake.
Because he dominates so much of the headline. There's a nice one that non-Finn, like any Finn knows this one, but non-Finns should be able to wrap their heads around it as well. Maalikunku or Maalikuningas. So we've got golden boots in English. Maalikuningas is the guy who has scored the most goals in whatever competition that they're in. Teemu Pukki is the Maalikunku for the championship.
It basically translates directly as goal king.
Yeah, goal king. And I remember, do you remember Boris Koko?
Mm-hmm.
He would, like, I think he won it back in 2015, 2016, something like that. And he got paraded around the Rops pitch with a crown and everything. So that was
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move into the second half and let's let Keke do a little bit of bragging. Let's start with the Suomen Cup. So you made some predictions at the start of the last show, and while you talk about them and how clever you are, I'm going to try and show everyone the picture you sent us earlier. So please tell us what you said last time.
We did. We spoke about the Suomen Cup on the last show, and as you quite correctly remember, Mark, I made some predictions for the 4 semi-finalists. Well, I'm saying that 3 out of 4 isn't too bad, and
there's your picture you sent me. So there's
Finnish football show graphic.
The quarters down to the semis.
That's it. So as you can see from that, IFK Marienham, Ilves, and KPV all went through, but the Inter Turku and VPS game went against my prediction, with the Vasa team going through with a 2-1 away win, as you can see there from the graphic. The semi-finals will be played next Thursday, the 16th of May, and we've got VPS at Marienham and KPV against Ilves. So we'll see what happens there. I'm not too sure if I'm brave enough to predict the finalists, but yeah.
Come on, you've been on fire with your predictions later. What do you think?
If I was under pressure, I'm going for a VPS and Ilves final.
Okay.
What?
We'll see. Yeah.
How can you back VPS? I mean, like, I know. Basically, you've not backed them for a while, and they keep proving you wrong. But there's got to be. I reckon I've got good money that says Daniel Schürrlen's going to lift the Suomen Cup with Marienham this year.
I think I have to go Marienham and Ilves, and we'll come on to Ilves again, I think, in just a minute. So let's see. We'll revisit this. When's the final, by the way? Who's got the date to hand?
Oh crikey! When is the final?
I think that
June, is it?
Yeah, it's roughly June, because last year they pushed it back to September, and then there was a bunch of complaints. But I think it gets sorted out. They have to work out the logistics basically after the semis are done.
And see who's playing who.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take this down now, and yes, I'm back, which is
top quality sharing.
That was not bad, was it? I'm all right at this. So we just talked about Ilves. Let's have a look at some of the things from the Veikkausliiga. There's been between 6 to 8 games played by most of the teams. Actually, we had some games tonight.
Yeah.
Let me have a little look here. I had it all organised, and now it's all disappeared. Here we go. So this evening, Inter beat Rops 3-0.
Yeah.
Ilves drew with Honka 1-1, and VPS drew with Hoikko Helsinki 1-1. And I think there's a few of the key stories sort of summarised there. And my first thing I wanted to say, and it goes on to why I think Ilves will be in the Suomen Cup final. They don't let in goals. All right, they've gone and let in goals tonight and ruined my story. But they had 5 games, 5 clean sheets. Now, looking at the table now, they played 6 games. They've only scored 5, so there's something in that as well. But they've only let in 1, and we lost to them a couple of weeks ago, and they didn't create anything, and scored this goal. But it wasn't at the time. I was just disappointed that Asiko hadn't done more. And then over the weeks, I was seeing them just kind of keep clean sheet after clean sheet. It made me realise that there's something going on there. And fair play to the team. You can't really argue with okay, 5 clean sheets out of 6 games, but still, it's got them at the top of the table. 12 points after 6 games. Yeah, I mean, there's now 3 teams on 12 points right at the top, but they've played 1 game less, and they've certainly let in a lot less goals than some of the others. Actually, interestingly, they're in second place at the moment is Asiko, who've let in scored 6 and conceded 4 in 7 games, and then there's Kups, who have in 7 games scored 13, which is great, and conceded 12, which is pony. So there's something to be said for a tight defence, I think.
Well, our old friend Rich Nelson spent many a year on the terraces of Highbury singing 1-0 to the Arsenal. So he can relate to Ilves' current performance. So yeah, if you're not letting in goals and nicking one on the break or from a set piece, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and there've been a lot of draws actually this year, especially for the big boys from Helsinki. And I think, Mark, you've got a phrase to sum up how Hoikko's season has been so far.
Bang average.
Yeah.
And they were, I mean, again tonight against VPS, they had two blokes sent off tonight, and VPS nicked a late equaliser. But they're not dangerous enough. They're not creating enough chances. They're up front. They've got that Bueno kid. Oh dear. He's, I think, like every now and again you want to bring in a kid from like Latin America or South America and take a chance, and it turns out to be Alfredo Morelos, and it's like a year down the line you've got 20 goals in the bag and a million and a half euros in your back pocket. Everybody's happy. Every now and again it's a lad like this Bueno kid, and okay, he's got to adjust, and it's the climate's not great, and he needs to sort of find the rhythm, and he's not obviously not used to it, but he doesn't look sharp, and he doesn't look. He looks worrying. If that's where Hoikko fans are hanging their hat to get goals this year, that's a worry.
But for the neutrals among us, it's nice to see things being thrown open for other teams to have another try.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, the thing is, the guy like Turku won 3-0 tonight. I cannot understand for the life of me how Valencic is back in this league at Turku. Like why I don't know why Hoikko or I mean even Asiko could have picked him up. He scored 5 goals last year for Hoikko. He scored 5 goals in the last month for Inter. So like he looks, that Inter Turku team. It's the best Inter Turku team I've seen in a decade or so. So which is not, it's not maybe saying that much, but it's genuinely looking like it can be sort of competitive and cause problems for teams.
Yeah, I made a list of the 3 top scorers, and then of course there were games tonight, so it's changed a little bit. Borges has now got 6 in 6, which is which every side would like a 6 in 6 man. Then there's Filip Valencic at Inter, who's got 5 in 7 games. And then there's Aristote Mboma Totti, as we called him. He was at Seinäjoki for a couple of seasons. Last year, he scored 4 in 27 games for Ashiko. This year, he's got 4 in 5 games for Mariehamn. I don't know. What can I say? Good for him, is what
Well,
I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't underestimate somebody like Daniel Sjöland, like moving the ball around in the midfield. Like, Sjöland's he's been a class act for a long time, and Marianne moved the ball really well. So, you know.
Oh, I think it's creativity. I mean, maybe we can move on to me whining about Astikor for a few minutes. But actually, that and like the Suomen Cup campaign was poor, and I think I said it in the last show, because I've been saying it to a lot of people, that they're building a young team. They're building a young Finnish team, which I think lets people get behind them. There's still some frustrations on the terrace. I think that's built on a few years of not delivering, but there is something. There's something there. Something's changing. I think last time, Mark, you said that Eremenko Senior likes his teams to play with a certain passing style, and also there seems to be a bit more emphasis on closing down. Certainly when teams attack. I mean, we really noticed it against Hoyikor, the pressing from the front, and it was exciting. And there was a noise that came from the Kloppit end of the Oma Aspe Stadion on that game, and it just naturally grew. It sounded awesome being in the middle of it, and I think people I spoke to who were elsewhere said that there was a noise that they hadn't heard before. It hasn't come back every game, if I'm honest. But the generally the positive feeling is there. I think Mossa is a player that probably, when he's on your team, you love him, and when he's playing against you, you hate him. And now he's in my team, so we love him. And I think he seems quite happy. He seems to really be kind of interacting with the crowd, and he seems happy in what he's doing. I'd like to see him doing it a bit further forward. It feels like he's sitting back a bit in that kind of quarterback role. And I'd like to see him unlocking the door around the edge of the box, which is perhaps why Totti never scored enough goals last year, because there wasn't someone doing that, and hasn't been for a couple of seasons, really. Eremenko Jr. in the middle of the pitch looks good. He's hit a screamer the other day, and he looks a good player. As does Serge Atakai, who's on loan from Rangers. I mean, he's very direct when he gets the ball. He really tries to get down the wing. The ball's coming over could be better, and he's a little bit light on his feet, shall we say, in not necessarily the most positive way, and seems to end up on his backside quite often. But you know, there's enough there to be positive about. And I'll say this: they've got a Brazilian, defender, Joel Nadson, whose song is based on the Flintstones theme tune. And it works, and it's good. And I'm not going to sing.
Nadson, meet the Nadson.
Nadson. Oh, Nadson. Well done, laddie. And also a new young Brazilian guy, Matheus Batista, up front, who is just starting to come into the games. He got his first goal a couple of matches ago. The fans made a big fuss of him. He seemed quite lifted by that. But again, he's not really getting the service, so it's difficult to know what he's all about so far. But we're second. And we were actually seeing we are top of the league a week or so ago. Well, with tongue in cheek, but it was fun to get it out. We haven't had that one out for a few years, that's for sure.
You optimistic? What do you reckon? I mean, if Hoyikor keeps struggling, can you keep up with Ilves?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, our defense is also not bad. No one's like Ilves, but we've conceded 4 in 7 games. So I think at the back there's not a huge problem. And actually it was similar last year. I remember complaining that we're not scoring enough, but we're actually not letting in that many goals. We had like the third best defense maybe and the second worst attack last year. Something like that. So defensively we can do it. We just need to get a few more goals in and give us fans a bit of a break. Let us enjoy the game. Like when we got a couple of goals in the bag, then all the party songs come out. The old Iggy Pop Passenger and Tequila comes out, and we can have a bit of fun. But when it's nervy, those songs are a bit dusty at the moment. And that's me. I'll stop my pro Asseco propaganda now. Any other things that you guys have noticed from the Veikkausliiga?
To be honest, it was just what we've covered. You know, HJK struggling. It's nice to see them languishing down in fourth and not running away with it straight away. So I'm sure they'll do all they can to arrest that and put the trend back as per the status quo. But it's nice to see some other teams at the top of the league for a while.
Yeah, I guess the other noticeable thing is that the two teams that came up from Ukkonen last year are both sort of sitting down at the bottom so far. Anyway, KPV from Kokkola with just the 1 point.
I think at least HJK won one, so they've won one.
Yeah.
I think KPV and VPS, I think they haven't won yet, and VPS look they look like they're going to struggle for the rest of the season. And then I think the other thing that I've noticed, I thought Rops would do a lot better because they got Stavitsky came back, although I don't think he's played yet. Boris came back. I'm not sure that he's played that much yet either. And I sort of had a feeling that Rops would be all right this year, but they haven't showed up yet.
Looking at the table, Robs' problem seems to be that classic football problem of they're letting in more goals than they're scoring.
That is a recurring problem for quite many, at least half the teams.
It's funny that, isn't it? Yeah, they scored 5 and let in 10, so that's not the way to power your way up the league. That's
So a big game coming up for you guys on Saturday. Then, Mark, it's you're away to HJK, aren't you? So if you're going to keep this momentum going, you want to pick up a win down there.
Yeah, and I've chosen the previous 2 weeks to take a free trial of Ruutu, and I've managed to get a few games. And this was because we were talking before the show, Mark, about how my now fiance, Lady Satu, has completely gone when it comes to football. She's at home now while we're here doing this nonsense. She's at home watching the Liverpool Champions League game. She's loving it. And a week ago she was poorly. She couldn't go to the Asseco KPV game, and so I said, look, let's have a look at Ruutu, and we took a free trial. And so I got to watch that. She watched that game, and then I watched the Lahti game at the weekend, and I've got the HJK away game to watch. And then I decide if I'm going to invest or if we take another free trial under her email. But so yeah, I'll be watching it. I won't be heading down there. I'll be watching it, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes in comparison to the game just from a couple of weeks ago as well. It would be nice to put a bit of distance. There's a lot of drawing going on at the moment, which means nobody's really breaking away. No one's won more than 3 games out of 6, and there's half the teams have drawn more than 3 games. So there's no one really stretching it at the moment. And if Ilves are mostly winning 1-0 or seemingly drawing 0-0, then they're not exactly putting their foot to the floor either. So there's
based on tonight, they'll be without Kain Karinen and Ichijile. So there'll be 2 players. There'll be 2 players light. I mean, Asseco open Seinäjoki. I think, you know, if the ball had broken a couple of different ways, because they started to press up towards the end of the game. I think even Mossa had a pretty good chance when he picked up the ball middle just in the halfway and had a chance to break through and then sort of rushed his shot. I think if you keep the press up, there's a fair chance you might be able to turn them over this weekend.
Yeah, I think he. I mean, Asikor's top scorer is Dennis Olinik, but I think Mossa's got he's got one so far. So we'll have a few goals from him, and maybe it's teams like Hoyikor that attack that allow that then allow Asikor to do what they did last time. So let's see. I tell you what we haven't talked about, and now's not the time. But why don't we come back to it in the next show about the new structure of the league?
Yeah, with the split in the last round.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll come back to that next time. That'll get the crowds flooding back to hear us waffling on about the new structure of the Veikkausliiga and how promotion and relegation is going to be worked out. I know how to set up a cliff.
That plus the wisdom,
the wisdom.
Yeah, teams that don't score enough and concede too much.
I got it. I've still got it. Okay, we're at the end. We're into injury time, and injury time is our new following feature. And Keke, this one was from you, and this was Ilkea Teemu at Ilkea Pukki. Why did you suggest him?
He's just funny, really. He tweets in Finnish, so you need a mild understanding of the Finnish language to get what he's saying. But it's I mean, what would be the literal translation of Ilkea? Is it?
I think it's evil Teemu.
Yeah.
Technically, it's mean, but I think it's not like I think evil Pukki is the best one.
So. He's quite prolific, and especially at the moment, as Teemu is hot news at the moment. And if you can get your tongue around Finnish language, then he's quite funny. But what did you like, Mark? There was one recently, wasn't there? That he.
Yeah, but you still like Brits. The Brits are sure tough until a Finnish guy turns up and puts a bottle of Yalu on the table, something like that.
Yeah, Yalu being the cheap kind of Yalovina kind
Moonshine?
of vodka mixed with brandy or something like that. It's
it's Yalu's. Well, hey,
it does the job, doesn't it?
It does our job.
Hey, listen, if anyone's interested, I've had a WhatsApp message from Lady Satu, who is watching the game, and after 7 minutes it's Liverpool 1, Barcelona 0.
Oh,
and I reckon that if we knock it on the head pretty quickly, we might just get home for the second half. Well, you two are at home. I've got a bit of a drive to do, so let's go into let's wrap it up there. So remember, everyone, you can keep in touch with us through our various websites. Mark is at FC Suomi with regular reports on the Hulkajad players around the world, and looking forward to those upcoming internationals. You've been a little bit quiet lately, Mark, but I guess it picks up again soon with the international games coming along.
Yeah, we've actually had some technical gremlins in the old internet machinery. So I'm going to try and get those sorted out. But yeah.
Okay, and Explore Finland radio show is coming up regularly now with new shows. So I recently published a two-parter about Kuro Distillery and their award-winning gin and their rye whiskey. So if you want to learn a bit about it turned into a history lesson and a bit about the business, and then a tour of the distillery, which was there was no drinking to be done, but it was good fun anyway. And Keith, you write regular articles for I called him Keith, Keke. You write regular articles for the Stand fanzine at standamf.com. Which is the stand against modern football. Anything recent on there?
Yeah, I had the recent article about the Nations League and my trip to Estonia, which you guys are all well versed and familiar with. But for anyone who hasn't heard about my trip, they can pick up latest issue of Stand AMF and have a read about that, and have a look at my WordPress as well, which is wordpress.com/Kekemyllari.
I'll add the links to both of those on the show notes, like I did last time. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Search for my name, Mark Wiltshire, or search for the Finnish Football Show. I've got something a little bit exciting coming up that I'll share about on the Facebook group. There's something going on with some of the Asicore fans going to be appearing on let's not say a rival, let's say a fellow football YouTube show. So in Finland, although I do hope they're not expecting me to talk Finnish, because that could be embarrassing. You might decide you want a new host for this show. The podcast will be following in a few days, and if I get my finger out and find the theme music, we can call it quits. I just realised I should have said goodbye to these guys. Bye, Keith.
Hey.
Bye, Mark.
Hello.
Yeah.